what's common with all addiction is that you can't do it alone. You try to do it alone, and it becomes, I want to do it, I should be able to do it, and then I can't do it.
Food Addiction is a podcast which explores the disease of food addiction and presents the solution. We interview professionals and counselors who specialize in the disease of food addiction, and we interview individuals who have successfully recovered from food addiction and discuss how they did it. Esther Helga Gudmundsdottir was motivated to change careers after she recovered from food addiction by opening a food addiction treatment center and the INFACT School, the world's first and only sugar and food addiction counseling training, which offers a recognized certification. Check out the website for more information on obtaining this certification, as well as proven recovery programs at infactschool.com. Listen to these episodes as we discuss the problem and the solution around food addiction. My name is Susan Branscome, and I'm going to be hosting guests on the INFACT School podcast. I also identify as a recovered food addict. As the intro said, in this podcast, we will speak with and will feature professionals and counselors who specialize in the disease and treatment of food addiction. And we will be interviewing individuals who have successfully recovered from food addiction and discuss their journeys and how they did it. Our first guest on the Food Addiction podcast is Esther Helga Gudmundsdottir, founder and director of the INFACT School, and this is an INFACT School podcast. This is her podcast. She is based in Iceland. So welcome, Esther.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here, and thank you, Susan.
Yeah, I'm excited about this venture and partnering with you in it. I really am. I mean, this is really going to be a great podcast for many people, and we're going to get into some questions. But first, I want to introduce you by reading your bio, then profile the INFACT School and dive into some questions.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, good. Esther Helga Gudmundsdottir is the director of the INFACT School and a pioneer in providing treatment for food addiction and developing training for professionals on food addiction counseling and treatment. She is a recovered food addict who has been in recovery for over 20 years. Esther Helga is the founder and director of the MFM Food Addiction Treatment Center in Iceland. She began the MFM Food Addiction Treatment Center in 2006, and they've treated over 3,000 Icelandic clients. MFM was the first outpatient treatment for food addiction in the world. She is the chair and executive director for the board of the Food Addiction Institute, known as FAI. And I have the privilege of serving with Esther on the board as a board member. The Food Addiction Institute was founded in 2005, and it's an independent, nonprofit organization whose mission is to support the healing of all food addicts. To accomplish this mission, FAI works toward the following: advocating widespread acceptance of food addiction as a disease of substance abuse and the availability of effective abstinence-based solutions, among many other things, to advance the acceptance and treatment of food addiction. And I'll talk about the INFACT School and training, and then we'll get into some questions, Esther. Mm-hmm. The INFACT School was established in 2017 by Esther Helga and has certified over 100 food addiction professionals from 19 different countries. This 7-month training is designed for current or future professionals in addiction, social work, health, obesity, nutrition, physical education, etc. The INFACT School, which is an acronym for International School for Food Addiction Counseling and Treatment, is the first and only training for sugar food dependency counseling and treatment, which meets qualifications as a certified food addiction professional, CFAP, from the European Certification Board, ECB, and is now a U.S. national certificate from the Addiction Professional Certification Board. This training will benefit anyone wishing to increase their knowledge of the root causes of food addiction, compulsive eating, and enduring the solution. All graduates will have learned effective counseling and treatment methods so their clients can achieve lasting recovery. INFACT alums are launching their practices and being hired as certified food addiction professionals for leading obesity centers, hospitals, and food addiction treatment centers. The course consists of 170 online virtual sessions taught in English. Classes are lectures, hands on teaching, learning, and active discussion. Sessions are conducted through the online video conferencing site Zoom with a live meeting format, including audio and video. Those completing the training are qualified for certification by the European Certification Board as a certified food addiction professional, as we said, and now as well the U.S. National Addiction Professional Certification Board. The next classes begin this September 2023. And for more information, you can go to INFACT School Training, and you can find that at the infactschool.com. How'd I do, Esther? Was that okay? Introduction?
That was a good introduction. Thank you, Susan.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing good. It's a lot of info.
Well, you and I have been, thanks. You and I have been meeting and planning the launch of the podcast for several months now, and this is our first episode, and it's fitting that you would be the first guest. And I'm excited to work with you and host professionals, people you know, and recovered food addicts and people I know and you know, so we can get the message out about this disease, the problem and the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell the listeners why you think this podcast is important? Why did you want to do it?
Well, I think that's a good way of opening this for sure. I want to do this podcast because I realized, of course, podcasts are a way to go to get information out to people. And I've seen on the world states that a lot of people know now about sugar and food addiction and ultra processed food addiction and all of this. What they may not know that in order to recover from it, there needs to be specifically work with it. We need to work with it as addiction, as a disease. And so for this problem of overeating and eating problems, and we have mostly people that have been working in the diet industry, people working in the health sectors, but not people working in the addiction sectors. So that's kind of where I want to give people insight. Why do we need to have specific treatment for this disease? Why isn't diet enough? Dieting? Why isn't health, eating healthy foods and running and having, healthy ways of living enough? Why is that? And the reason is that it is a biopsychosocial disease, and we need to address all of these.
Right. Yeah. Great answer. We're going to talk about the INFACT School and the treatment center, but I thought it would be good for the listeners to hear more about you. So talk about where you grew up, your background. Your first career was in music and you have children.
Mm-hmm.
You went to college in the U.S. at Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana, where my daughter graduated from. And so talk about your background.
Well, I'm a native of Iceland. I'm like an Icelandic Viking woman. When I was studying with my blonde hair to my waist, at Indiana University, I was seriously called the Viking woman. It was funny.
You say Viking?
Yes, Viking. I guess my V isn't.
You don't pronounce it like we do.
I have a hard time with the V.
All right.
So I am a native of Iceland, and I'm lucky to have 3 grown-up children and 5 grandchildren, and so I live a happy family life. For sure. I of course, I don't know if we're gonna come into that very young when I started having problems with eating, and not necessarily the weight in the beginning, but I had eating problems from very young age in a way that I couldn't stop eating certain foods and I craved them. And
Once you start.
Yes.
Once you
Yes.
started.
And
Yeah.
then, then I kind of went through life with this disease, developed eating disorders, addictions, basically to certain behaviors around eating. And underneath, it was the substance use disorder, certain foods and food in general, and volume of food that I was addicted to, and that escalated until my grown-up days. And I was struggling with it until I finally got abstinent, and with the support of a sufficient food plan and program for me to get recovered. Uh, and I went from being a regular weight most of the time to up to like 123 kilos. We do kilos here in Iceland. That's probably about to almost 300 pounds or so.
So you weighed at one time 300
Yes,
pounds.
and about so. And no matter what I did, it would never, it would never, it would never last. And I say sometimes I was a great dieter. I had a lot of willpower for dieting, and I was like successful every time until I wasn't. And I probably lost about 1,000 pounds during this period. And it was just amazing. It was up and down, up and down, up and down.
I did too, and we're gonna get into some of that as far as anyone listening about, starting to eat certain foods and not being able to stop using food to cope with life and all of that. So, but you were at IU, Indiana University, and you had a career in music, right?
Yes.
You were an opera singer, as I understand.
Yes,
right?
a music a choir director. I ended up pretty much more in that, and teaching singing and here in Iceland, and I had a great, wonderful career in that. But my soul was dead by the time I stopped that, and turned my career around. It was midlife. I did, and
yet this is a chapter 2 for you. You started your career in music, and there was probably a time in your life you really never thought you'd be doing what you're doing today, right?
No.
When you weighed 300 pounds, and it was a complete shift in your career. You started a treatment center in Iceland in 2006. You started the INFACT School, training other food addiction professionals. And talk about that. Why did you decide to start the treatment center in the school?
Well, when I finally found a solution for myself, it was such a fundamental change for me, and I really literally got a new, new life and new start of life. I became a really new person, and I knew when that happened to me that I wanted to contribute to that. I had needed to suffer quite badly from this disease, and I didn't get any help from any professional ever to help me what was really wrong with me. So I needed to suffer quite a long time, and to the severity of suicide almost. So I decided to that I wanted to see what was out there, and I wanted to study and learn what I could so that I would be able to be beneficial for people with this disease. And there wasn't much at all. You could do eating disorders, but they learn about being that kind of a counselor, but that wasn't. They seriously did not approach or accept food addiction as a disease. So that wasn't working.
Right. More bulimia, anorexia, right? Eating disorders.
Yes. Yeah. And so that wasn't helpful. So I started a diploma degree in addiction counseling. And supervision for addiction. And that was my first learning toward what addiction treatment was really about. And so that was an excellent start for me. And then I studied, and then I found ACORN, Phil Burdell and Mary Fushi, who had started an experimental training for food addiction professionals. And I entered their program for 3 years, and we became kind of partners in and worked together as and me and Phil, we say kind of that the INFACT School became something that came off that training, Phil's training, and also off of what the principal clinical guidelines are for addiction treatment.
So you had the career music. You said, "Hey, I've found a solution to the insanity and unmanageability in my life. I'm going to go on and do this." So you trained with Phil and Mary,
Yes.
Phil Wardell and Mary Fauci, and then started a treatment center, and then started the INFACT School. So these are pioneering efforts to help and really give service back.
Yes.
And it's really wonderful. You have another session beginning this fall, September 2023, and the people that graduate from these, the graduates have clients. They treat people, clients for food addiction recovery, right?
Yes, and quite a few have established positions or established their own private practices. It's not an easy practice to go into, as we don't have acceptance from the ICD and the DSM for food addiction.
And define those acronyms, ICD and DSM.
So the World Health Organization has the ICD, which is the International Classification of Disease, and they have to accept something as a disease before it can be used in diagnosis. And then the U.S. American Psychiatric Association does the same thing with the DSM, which is same kind of tool.
Right. And that's the APA and
Yes.
American Psychiatric Association, and then they have the DSM.
Yes. And so neither of these have accepted food as a substance use order as of yet. And but we at the Food Addiction Institute have worked diligently toward the goal of sending in applications. We've supported an application sent in last year, which was rejected, needs to be worked on further. And then we are supporting one being sent for the APA this year, hopefully. And so we are really working on that, because once we get the acceptance of food addiction or food as a substance use disorder, then people can really start practicing this as a profession. But we do and
That's
can
right.
do it, and professionals have been using their knowledge from the INFACT School as an add-on to their profession, and can really be beneficial. If a physician had told me I had food addiction, go and get some help where there's help to have, I would have.
Right. But and we know it's real. We know food addiction is a disease. We know that just like alcoholism, there are people, I would put myself in this category too. Once you ingest it, it sets up a craving and you want more. You become obsessed with it, and it is a disease. So let me go back to the DSM, which is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM, which is through the American Psychiatric Association, APA, right? So that's the effort afoot with the Food Addiction Institute and others. There are others that are trying to get this accomplished. And really have food addiction recognized as a mental disorder, as a real disease, just like alcoholism, just like drug abuse, just like anorexia and bulimia, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. that's the effort. And so I'm getting chills just talking about it, because that's one of the reasons that I wanted to be on the Food Addiction Institute board with you, is to do what I can to help. I'm a businesswoman with a food addiction, but you have many wonderful professionals on there who are working toward this. So I'm hopeful that this will be accomplished. Let's go to the effort afoot. You know, it was applied for last year, right? Food addiction was, we tried last year.
Yes.
And if you think about the money here, big pharma, the sugar industry, that I'm sure there's a lot of lobbying efforts that would be not in support of that, right? They'd have to pay for it.
Yes.
But
And
talk about that.
Well, there's of course, there's there is the food industry, and they seem to be very much aware, and we have information that they do, and they even have had meetings where they discuss how they can make things better, so that their food may not be so harmful. But they're not much coming from it being an addictive substance. They're more coming from that it is very harmful to your health, and that is also very true. And I think like 70% of cancers because of sugar and those processed substances.
Right, it's inflammatory, which leads to cancer.
Yes,
right?
and so many different diseases. So it's my theory is that you can't fight the Goliath. You just have to you need to know you're just the tiny little thing, and we just need to step one step at a time. We have the science. The science is there. Yes, it's accumulating by the hour, I'm telling you. And so sooner than later, they won't be able to say no anymore. But I'm pretty sure it's not easy. It's not easy for people in those committees even to admit to this because of pressure, outside pressure.
Yeah. There are political things that go on. But if you look at the obesity, all you have to do is walk around out in public and see the incredible amount of obesity in the U.S.
Yes.
And obesity-related illnesses, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. I was a diabetic. I had high blood pressure. All of those are gone since I've recovered in food addiction. And if you think about the health insurance industry, yes, you might have to pay for someone to go to a treatment center, but look at the long-term costs that you will save for not treating these obesity-related illnesses, right?
Absolutely. And never stops to amaze me to look at my clients as they come into the treatment. We have we suggest 4-month treatment, and they come out as a totally new person. I'm telling you, it's nothing the same. It's the physical that changes, and all the diseases, the medication that they don't have to use anymore or less of it. And, just miracles happen as we stop using the substances and the foods. And as we work with, the mental and the emotional part of the disease, the personality change that happens as a consequence of the biological hijacking of the brain.
Right. Yeah. I want to set this up for the listeners, and I think we're going to have a number of different types of listeners, but just speaking to people that may not completely understand the disease of food addiction. You and I became abstinent from the addiction to food and certain foods, and I have kept off a weight loss, weight release of 65 pounds. I think yours is higher, right? The amount of weight you've lost and kept off for 20 years.
Yes, it is. what is it? It is like 60 kilos, so it's about 130 pounds or so that I lost.
So 130
Yes.
pounds you released 20 years ago, and you've kept it
Yeah.
off, and it's not through dieting. That's the message, I think, to food addicts and anyone struggling out there. It's like, why can't I do this?
Hmm.
What is wrong? The diets, and I was like you. I was a very good dieter.
Hmm.
You give me a diet, I will follow it. I will lose weight, and I'll look great for a while physically. And but then I always went back to food. So let's set this up for the listeners a bit. Abstinence and food addiction is like sobriety and alcoholism. Abstinence, that's the word we
Yeah.
use. So as food addicts, we do not eat more than is recommended to us, you and I, and other recovered food addicts, by a professional to reach a healthy weight. And we typically don't eat sugar. Many of us do not eat flour or any kind of what we call trigger foods, binge foods.
Hmm.
Um, I became fully abstinent in food addiction recovery at 57. I am now 64, so I got in here late. I dieted for 43 years and gave them up. And you were 48 years old, I believe, when
Yes.
you got
Yes.
abstinent. So you did what I did. You got a food plan. You entered a 12-step program
Hmm.
and found and maintained recovery one day at a time. So you and I share this in common. We were very good dieters. And, since I'm a food addict, like I say, the weight always came back. So talk about your experience. I know the listeners, you've started the school, you had a treatment center. Talk about your experience when you realize that it's not about getting the right diet
Yeah.
and losing weight, right?
Yes. Well, there's three pillars to recovery, and one is that you do need this, abstinent food plan, and it cannot be just the diet. It needs to be set up, and for some, and it may be different for different people. It really can be and may need to be for sure. And what I was lucky enough that it was sufficient to my, the diet or the abstinence plan, food plan that I got was sufficiently, it had actually took out all my trigger foods. So,
Hmm.
so once that happened, poof, my craving was gone. Just like in almost a couple
Right.
of days, no craving. And that was the first time ever I couldn't understand what was happening to me. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, I had this peace within me, and I didn't need to have anything. I would, think, what's happening? I don't have a need. And so that is the importance of abstinence. It's also very important that we eat enough. Many people go
Right.
into this as a dieter, and we're used to not eating enough. But
Right.
yeah,
Restricting.
but
Right.
food plans is not to diet, or even though the result of
Right.
it will help you lose the weight you need. It is not
Yes.
to go on a healthy diet, not necessarily. It is, even though once you get abstinent, your health will improve. It is a special program for the food addiction that you have. That
Hmm.
so that needs to happen first. Then we need a lot of support. That one thing that was common with all addiction is that you can't do it alone. You try to do it alone, and it
Yes.
becomes I want to do it. I should be able to do it, and then I can't
Right.
do it. So
Right.
willpower doesn't work for people with addiction. And
That's
Susan
right.
Pierce Thompson was teaching at INFACT, the like a couple of months ago, and she had such a wonderful way of explaining it from a scientific viewpoint. We have about 15 minutes of willpower for food a day, and then the rest of it
Hmm.
is recharging. That
Yeah.
means you
Yeah.
you wake up, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, and you're downstairs, and then the willpower is gone. So if the
Right.
willpower for us would be the only thing that should work, we're screwed. So
Yes. Right.
recovery is really through a lot of support, outside help,
Yes.
and then as we
Right.
get that, we need to do the work that changes, like I said before, the personality change that happens
Yes.
as a result of the hijacking of the brain. And because
Right.
when we start using substances or behaviors that sedate us and change how we
Yes.
feel, then we stop developing our emotional immaturity.
Yes. Yeah. Let me address that just with about what you're saying. Well, first of all, the food plan. My food plan, I eat 5 times a day. There's no sugar, and I don't get hungry. I don't get
Hmm.
physically hungry, other than just the normal hungry, like it's time to eat lunch. I need to eat lunch.
Yes.
And then once the sugar was out of my system and I got really clear, it was like, okay, here's the perfect food plan for me to get to a maintenance weight, which is about 70 pounds less than what I was weighing. And then we have to get to the causes and conditions of why we were eating, right?
Right.
And what we do is we work a program of recovery. And we find out that, maybe it was fear, maybe we were angry with someone, maybe so that's the recovery part. It's not a diet. It's not about, okay, here's your food plan. You eat, Susan, lose weight. I can do that. I did it for 43 years.
Yes.
It wasn't until I got into recovery, for this addiction that things changed.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone out there right now who, let's say, weighs, should weigh like maintenance weight, let's say, is 140,
Hmm.
is a good maintenance weight, but they weigh 250
Hmm.
and they keep trying diets. And, there's a lot of shame
Yes.
around this. What would you say to that person about food addiction, that they may, perhaps they are a food addict? Only they can answer that.
Well, because coming from being a professional, what I would say to a person like this: find a professional that can diagnose or
Hmm.
screen and assess what's wrong with you. And the INFACT School students have a very strong knowledge base to do that, and they will help you realize the kind of problem that you have, so we can estimate what kind of treatment that you may need as you go forward. And you may be, like early stage, can be middle stage, you can be late stage, you can be final stage in this, and you may have eating disorders. You may have come into this disease through trauma and abuse, and then develop
Hmm.
the chemical dependency to the certain foods because you used foods that are addictive. The-
Yes.
so then we get addicted to them. That's just the natural thing, for sure. So I would suggest you can come to the infactschool.com. We're working pretty heavily now on the alumni side to get the people in there that could really come, and you could contact and get the support and help for treatment, and at least
Sure. Yeah.
assessment for your disease, so you can and get
Right.
the guidance of what else to do. Other is the 12-step
Right.
programs. We have a few
Yes.
different ones, and I was lucky to get a program that really fit what I needed, and I did it to
Hmm.
the T. And I did everything I was told, and it saved my life.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Same with me. It saved my life, because I was going to probably die of some obesity related illness,
yes.
like a stroke from high blood pressure. I had
Oh my
diabetes,
God.
and all of those are gone. But it wasn't a diet, it was a program of recovery.
Yes.
There are 2 questions on the Food Addiction Institute website. There are several questions to identify whether you're a food addict or not, but 2 of them I identified with. Are you ashamed of how much you eat?
Hmm.
And I was ashamed of how much I ate, and I was ashamed of how much I weighed and what I look like.
Absolutely.
And then do you start the day promising yourself you will not binge, only to give in to another day of overeating?
Yeah. Do
Right?
I ever remember that?
I assume yes, I do. All right, it's 8 o'clock on a Monday.
Right.
I'm not going to eat this or that. And I used exercise and restricting and all of that,
Yes.
and all of it worked for a while, until it didn't work anymore. But yeah, those are questions for someone out there that might be struggling with this. Go to the infactschool.com, find a counselor. The FAI has a great website,
Absolutely.
and there are recovery programs listed
Yes.
on both those websites.
Also, and
right?
also on the FAI is we have extensive book lists of
Yes.
books to read, and partners like Milestone in Recovery Treatment Center, Shift Recovery Center, and which we really are amazing, both of them, and then of course others are coming up more and more as we speak, and more and more people are being educated in the field so that they can do this help.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up and kind of wind down here, there are movements afoot to get food addiction recognized as a mental disorder, as a real addiction, in these various organizations, so that it can be treated and really paid for by insurance.
Yes.
Recognized as a real addiction. And that's what I had. That's what you had. We've recovered. We found the solution. Right. And on this program, we're going to talk to professionals, many of them about the science of this. And we're also going to talk to people who have recovered from this disease, like you and I have.
Yes. And I think that is so important.
So I'm excited about that. So what would you say to physicians out there who are counseling their patients? I used to go into my doctor and he used to say, Susan, you got to lose weight. You got to lose weight. You got to lose weight. I'm like, I know. And so finally I did. And he said, whatever you're doing, your body loves it, now.
Yes.
So what would you say to physicians that might be listening in? And then also I'm going to ask you what you would say to people that may want to get trained as a food addiction counselor.
Well, to physicians, I would say, get more, get more education about what would help your client, and know where to refer them. And you can go to foodaddictioninstitute.com. You can come into the infactschool.com to get more information. We have had quite a few physicians, as well as other professionals, do the INFACT training, simply so that they are better equipped to know and help their clients. Because, as you said, they are working out there and nothing really works for their clients that really have this disease, because what is being offered is not addressing the addiction part of the disease. Until that happens, a person is not going to recover. And, the INFACT School is teaching that. You get insight into knowing about that. Now, for anybody wanting...
And the food addiction, let me interrupt you for a second. It's foodaddictioninstitute.org.
.org. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Absolutely.
Yes. And foodaddictioninstitute.org, and it's the infactschool.com.
Thank you, Susan. You saved me here. For sure.
It's my job here to do that.
So also for the people that might have interest in getting training and learning more, just come onto our page, theinfactschool.com, and read and get interviews with us for further discussions and on how the school and the training would benefit you. We're presently interviewing the students, and they're kind of giving their impact, and we're going to be putting more of those onto the website, and so that you can hear people that have really done it. We have had doctors in neuropsychology. We have had, as I said, physicians, psychiatrists, and on and on and on, that
Mm-hmm.
really, really feel that this education has been very beneficial for them, just for their profession. Then there is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people that are even recovered or want to be recovered, that come in for more information, and that is fine. And some of these people have gone on to study more and get and work under supervision, so that they can start really working in the field, which is
Mm-hmm.
what something that the school supports as well. And
Yeah,
so it's both.
that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, just congratulations, and I'm so impressed. I love working with you, and I love doing this project with you. But you took your own recovery and food addiction as a disease, and we know that there's a brain part of this, and we know there's an emotional component of this, and we know that recovery,
Mhm.
programs of recovery work. But congratulations! I mean, it's really impressive to have taken that and said, "I'm going to start a treatment
Yeah.
center. I'm going to start a school." I mean, it's a little crazy to do all that, but you've done it, and you have a reputation in this whole sector that's very impressive. So congratulations, and thank you for allowing me to help you host guests on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking to a lot of these people. I've got some books to read before I host certain people, and getting the message out there that there is a problem of food addiction out there, and there is a solution.
Yes. And
So thank you, Esther.
thank you, Susan. And yes, emphasis that there is a solution.
There is a
And we need,
solution. Yeah, we found it.
yeah, and
Now
we need to give
get the
people,
message
we
out.
need to get the message and the hope out to people.
And the hope. And there is freedom.
Yes.
There is freedom and really a wonderful life. Like your grandkids, my grandkids. My grandkids know that I do certain things with my food so that I can be around to watch them grow up and hopefully go to college, get married.
Yes. It's not a bad thing.
We're going to be around.
Absolutely. I plan to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Esther. It's been great.
Thank you, Susan.
This is the Food Addiction Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and learned more about this disease. We hope you will rate and write a review on this podcast and share it with others. If you or someone you know is suffering from the disease of food addiction, there is a solution. The various food addiction recovery programs are available and listed on the website, theinfactschool.com. Or if you would like to know more about how to get certified in treating food addiction, the school is accepting applications now for its next training beginning in September 2023. Go to theinfactschool.com. That's INFACT school.com to learn more.